Congratulations, Bill Ward, and congratulations, Stephen. Who would have ever thought that two people, two men of God, could have a simple idea to carry the gospel of Christ to so many people, especially men? I know that it was a gift given to you, a vision given to Stephen and you, Bill, as I said, to carry on the gospel of Christ. Anyone that may be listening to the podcast, you've touched so many, especially men, in being what it takes to be a godly man, but mainly so many men, godly men that you've had on the podcast, so many inspiring stories. And all I can say is, thank you, Bill. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being a person that I've always looked up to and that I've always admired. And Stephen, thank you for being such a wonderful friend to Bill and to help him carry on and to help with the podcast. Many blessings to you both. And as a side note, it is very true. Bill is a Cubs fan. He does not wear white socks. So thank you, Bill, again for your friendship. I love you, brother. Congratulations on the 100th podcast. May you have many, many, many more.
Hey guys, I want to welcome you and let you know how great it is to have you here for the Greater Purpose Podcast.
What's up? Welcome to the Greater Purpose Podcast, the 100th episode from the Cubs room. The cheering crowd in the background, the roaring crowd.
100 episodes.
That's crazy.
100.
And I promised you that our producer, Stephen Wright, would be here for the 100th episode, and here he is.
Glad to be here, Bill.
Yeah.
So happy to be here.
It's so we're going to do something different. We've done a couple of different podcasts where we did book reviews, and we did one where we talked about the Hurricane Helene stuff, and so we've had some variations, but generally we stick to a certain format, and we talk about inspirations and stuff, and we've done that. We did that with you. We did it with me.
Yep.
So we're going to go a little bit different today since it's the 100th episode. We are going to talk about that specific thing, but I do want to cover a couple things to begin with. We do have some sponsors of this show, and it was at the beginning, Bill Ward Photography. Woo! And Mr. Bill's STEM Education.
Yes.
Right? Without them, what would we do? No, I'm kidding. Our sponsors. Right. And Right Solutions. Right?
Yes.
So those are us, by the way.
Yes.
If you don't know that already, Bill Ward Photography, Mr. Bill STEM, and then Right Solutions is Stephen's business, his company, his marketing that he does. Without those things, we could never do the podcast.
Pretty true.
Yeah, exactly. So we did have a fundraiser, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we have, God's given us the ability to take what He allows us to do in our professional lives in order for us to do this and what we're doing here.
It's amazing.
It is crazy. It is
amazing.
Crazy.
Every time I think of it, I just wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and we do have one additional special sponsor specifically for the 100th episode, but also going forward, A+ Lawn Care and Landscaping in Gastonia since 1994. Been around a long time. Yeah. Scott Sheehan's the owner of that. 94. I think he was like 12.
Just met him. Yeah.
So yeah. So but yeah. So landscaping, tree care, lawn maintenance, land clearing, commercial pole light service, stump removal, accent and outdoor lighting, parking lot striping, irrigation systems,
and a partridge in a pear tree.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, wait.
They have a garden center and you get this, the concrete statues and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Your mulch and
Yep.
the spring is coming up, so
What's
at the
his
end
number?
of March.
I don't recall.
Yeah. So at the end of March, he'll have all their new plants and all their stuff that you need for your gardening and all that stuff.
Aerating, yeah, good.
But they also, during deer season, they sell buck yum trophy feed. I have no idea what that is, but apparently
sounds delicious.
Apparently, that's to get the deer to come to you. And black widow deer lures. I don't know what those are either. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
If I was a hunter, I would know. But black widow deer lures. It sounds pretty deathly for the deer.
Leave his comments for those who do know.
Yeah, if you know, right.
Those deer hunters out there.
Yeah, right. And they also sell case knives. Yeah. I had a chance to go down there and take some videos of some of these really cool. I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but they have some really cool knives that you can go get. But they're at 812 East Ozark in Gastonia. So you can drop by there during their business hours, which are regular business hours during the week, a couple hours on Saturday, or call them 704-853-1107. That's 704-853-1107.
I need to get some stuff done. Just hold on one second.
Okay, he's gonna order some buck yum trophy feed right now. Oh well, they don't have any right now. You can't order that. You'll have to wait. That's not deer season.
Well, I can put it on hold.
Well, when I went down to do the videos for the case knives, I'm like asking about the deer stuff, and he looked at me like I was a moron. Not Scott, the guy that was there, and he really didn't. He was great. The guy was great, but he did tell me. He did say, well, it's not deer season, so I was like, oh yeah, duh. So anyway, but yeah, so we appreciate A+ Lawn Care and Landscaping for supporting the podcast. Amazing stuff. If you'd like to sponsor the podcast, we want to do some we'll call your business out too. I was gonna wait and do that 10 minutes, but I jumped right into it. So
it's okay.
But we are going to talk about some of our guests. We've had some amazing guests on the podcast, so I don't want to. We may call some names out specifically, and I apologize, guys, if your name is not on there, because you've all been absolutely amazing, every single one of them. But anybody that stands out in your mind as far as some of the guests that we've had through here?
My favorite guest was the first one.
Okay, that doesn't count. You can't count him.
I do. He didn't even know. He didn't even know he was being.
So if you go back to the very first episode, it was me.
Yes.
And we were sitting here talking, and his head is up here.
Yeah, was up here cut off.
So I thought we were just practicing.
Yeah.
Kind of, because I'd never done a podcast before. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, so I thought we were practicing, and he started interviewing me, and I caught on probably about 10 minutes into it, and I realized what he was doing, and he saved it, and that was our first podcast.
It was awesome.
That was.
I have to. I'm my dad, right? So I have to remember. My son was also on the podcast. So it was pretty fun.
Anthony, the biggest podcast fan.
Still calls you podcast guy.
Calls me podcast guy, yeah.
Hey, you're going to the podcast. Can I go?
Yeah, I know.
I want to go.
Bless his heart.
Oh, it's great. I love it.
And in church, he still, when he sees me,
podcast guy.
Yeah, it's like,
his smile gets big. It's huge. Crazy. It's awesome. I mean, and thank you for those others. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that come up and say same thing, man. He's an awesome podcaster. I mean, it's awesome. This is great. It's unbelievable.
Well, and we're gonna hear from some of those. We did have some share some videos with us that we're going to talk about in just a minute, and watch some of those things. So we'll shout out to some of those people as well. But listen, every man who has come through here has had an amazing story. Some of these guys that come in here, they're nervous. Believe it or not, even some of the pastors who've come through here because this is not something they do.
Right.
Sitting down for an interview type thing. So they've actually been nervous.
I gotta talk about me. No, I'm not about the church.
Yeah.
They're worried. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Though.
Yeah.
Right. So when you put them in the hot seat, it's a different story.
But what the cool thing about it is, why the format I think works the way it works, is you're just sitting here having a conversation. So very quickly it kind of comes down.
That's
and
right.
They start to open up, and they've shared some I can't, like I said, I can't even call out names because I'd be calling out. I wouldn't say one when I should have said another, but they've all been absolutely amazing. We will talk specifically about some of the ones who did the videos and sent those in just a minute. But we do want to mention the Greater Purpose podcast. We're going to talk about how it started in a minute, but how the greater purpose of a godly man the Greater Purpose name started with our men's conference, which was 5 years ago.
Wow.
We were supposed to be going to the Ignite conference at Liberty up in Virginia, and they postponed it from spring to fall because of COVID. So had some guys that were really looking forward to going, and it's a great conference, but they were postponing it. So we thought, well, let's just do one here. Let's just do a little conference here.
And it's funny, right?
In April so that would have been April of 21.
Yes.
2, 3, 4, 5. April 2021. We did the Greater Purpose of a Godly Man men's conference. Okay. So had some great guests there. You can go back and check those out. But at the time, Mayor Denton was there, Steve Jesperson, Jason Mitchell, some other guys, and some of those guys are going to be participating in our 5th one, which is coming up this year. But and also sending in some video clips and talking about some things too.
Steve was number 2.
Yeah, Steve
Jesperson. He was the second podcast.
Oh yeah. So yeah,
technically the first guest.
Well, I was going to say some of those guys have been guests as well, and some of the guys over the past 4 years have been guests as well. Not everybody. So there's not. So when we started the men's conference, there was not a correlation between the two. I mean, the podcast wasn't even a vision. It wasn't even a thought. You know, like you tell somebody before they're born, you weren't even a gleam in your father's eye. Okay. So the podcast wasn't even a gleam in daddy's eye at that time. So we did the men's conference in 21, and then 22 would have been when you were working for AT&T. You came so this is the setup to tell you about how our men's conference is coming up again in April 26th, I believe, the last Saturday in April. The Greater Purpose of the Godly Man men's conference, car show, all that good stuff.
Conference.
So again, we'll do links for all those. They're on the page. You can go find them, look them up, Google them. You know how to find that stuff. So
it's gonna be great.
It is going to be great. So we added the car show. We've talked about that a couple of times. So but he comes to sell us the phone. By the way, the phone is the phone that we use to do this podcast, which I couldn't have done on my old one.
Right.
And when I bought this phone, I said, hey, I need the top of the line. I need to get the best one I can get. Not knowing why, I just knew I wanted the best and the top of the line. I was doing some video stuff on the side a little bit, but I didn't know we would be doing a podcast. So literally, we were done with the phone business, and I said, hey, you need to come up and see the Cubs room.
Like you do with everybody.
I invite everybody to come see the Cubs room. So if you're not on the podcast, I've said this before, you're welcome to come see the Cubs room. You don't have to be on the podcast. But so I don't know if you remember what you said when you hit that door right there, but maybe you do. Do you remember what you said? As soon as you walked in that door and hit the carpet and looked around, you went, do you remember?
What did I say?
Dude, you got to do a podcast.
That's right.
I will never forget those words.
Dude, you got to do a podcast.
But you don't remember what I said to you, probably. I said, shut up, you're stupid.
Well, that's what I get that a lot.
Well, and I tell people because I don't want to shock them. Oh my gosh, he said stupid. And I said, shut up. But I can talk to him like that. This is my buddy right here. So I was able, we have that kind of relationship. So I did. I told him he was stupid. Yeah, he's a liar. No, you're not a liar. And I did. And I didn't mean like, shut up, you're stupid.
It's all right, I got you.
But I thought
people have said that before, so it's not really a big deal.
Oh, okay, so that was new. That was not new.
Yeah. Right. Because I say stuff.
Well, and you do. So because you have this gift for a vision of things that other people should do.
Correct.
And that's what I try to explain to people. It wasn't my vision at all. For an entire year, it was not my vision.
Until you called me.
But God gave you the vision, and then probably 7 months later, I think, is when I was like, well, maybe.
Yeah, it had to sink in a little bit.
Yeah, it did. Well, But
did you really understand what I meant?
No clue. I had no clue.
I walked into this room and I see a Cubs fan. But I don't just see a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
I see like a fan. Yeah. Like I'm remembering myself as a little kid going into just a baseball shop and buying some baseball cards and stuff like this. And I walk in this room and I'm like,
it screams at you.
Overload, and it's screaming at me. And like, I felt myself as a kid again. And I'm like, man, this would be an awesome idea for a podcast. I mean, you're the biggest Cubs fan I know. I mean, come on, who's got dirt from Wrigley Fields? And I mean, just come on. So it's just that's what it was.
But see, when you said that, I thought, first of all, why would anybody watch? And I think I said to you, why would anybody watch a podcast with me on it?
Yeah.
Number two, I think I thought because you're in the Cubs room, you were thinking sports.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to do. I have no interest in doing a sports podcast. So God took the men's conference and the networking and the men's ministry that I'm involved in and the connections that by God's grace I've been able to make with a lot of these guys. And probably 7 months later, I started looking at all of these relationships that I had and thinking about the men's conference for the following year, which would have been the third year, and thinking, well, maybe there's something we can do. And that's when I think we started bouncing some ideas off.
Yes.
And so in March of 23.
March 6th.
Yeah, you got the date? He's got the date.
March 6th, 2023.
Yeah, that was the launching of the Greater Purpose podcast.
That's correct.
That was crazy. So we've had a couple of, so you may notice that this is in February and that in a couple of weeks, the following week would actually be 52 weeks. So technically it'd be 104 podcasts, but we've had a couple of podcasts that we've replayed and
he doesn't believe that you should take vacation. For some reason, I just don't understand.
No, why would you? Why would you?
There's 52 weeks in a year, so there should be 52 podcasts per year. I mean, I just don't understand. Okay.
Well, but the neat thing about the podcast guests in some cases is they've been able to come in flurries.
Yeah.
So I can get 3 or 4 of them, and then they're recorded and they're ready. So that hasn't happened over the holiday season.
Yeah.
But again, God
opened.
God,
the door opened.
Yeah, God pointed all that stuff. So just started inviting some guys, and the very first few guys that came on here, Hal Weatherman, Steve Jesperson, Ted Alexander, Paul Brentley, Chris White. I mean, some of these guys, it was like I started sending out these messages and talking to them.
I remember Shannon, we had to retake.
Shannon. So, so let me tell you these stories because not everybody does these.
Yeah.
Not everybody. I tell these to the guests, but I don't tell these stories to everybody on the podcast. We had one podcast that disappeared.
Yeah.
That was the one that was gone.
It must have been the one that I was in at the Outer Banks.
Yeah.
We were recording Zoom through. Yeah, that was a tough day. Yeah.
Poof, disappeared. Yeah. So Shannon Williams, I knew him.
Yeah.
But didn't know him as well as I do now and had to send him a message and say, dude, you're not going to believe this. Okay, so these guys, I don't hold people up on a pedestal, but these guys are in positions.
Yeah.
And they have their time is extremely valuable when they come here. And so to sit here and go, oh my gosh, I got to ask this guy to come back again, or tell him I can't do, or the podcast, you got to tell them something.
Right.
They can't come do a podcast and it never shows up. So we had to invite him back, and he was like, dude, no problem.
Yeah,
I'll be back.
It was awesome.
Then we had another one, Robert. Yes. Yeah. And Shannon's been back a couple times. He did his book.
Got his book. Yeah.
His Revelation Unlocked.
Yep.
He came back and talked about the homeless thing that they did. Was it 5-day challenge?
Yeah. Was it last year too? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it's okay.
I get excited.
He and John Beard did a homeless challenge. I'm pretty sure it was 5 days. It might have been 3. Maybe it was a 3-day challenge. I apologize. Sorry. But it was still pretty cool to watch and listen to what they had to say about that. And then he did some hurricane relief stuff. So he came and did a split podcast with Donnie Loftus. Who was another one that came back a couple of times. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say he really touched me at if it's not the last men's conference. Man, he brought it.
Yes.
He brought it. So
well, and that's the thing too.
And it's something I would never have met Shannon without this. There's no doubt about it.
And these guys, so his podcast he had to come back for. Robert King, I think, was the one that we lost the audio on. Somebody else's, we lost. There was video, no audio. Yes, just crazy stuff. And then
fun stuff when you're just getting started,
Yeah, and I think the one I was getting ready to quit on was Ray Hardy.
It was around 5 or 6.
Yeah, it was somewhere around. Well, so it would have been before Ray's because with Pastor Ray, we sat here, we did the test, we did everything, we did our podcast. I went back, there was no sound. No sound. And he was sitting here. As a matter of fact, he put together his Lego superhero on and I videoed it.
Yeah.
And while I'm videoing it, I'm thinking, how am I going to tell this guy?
Oh.
Because again, these guys they have important positions. Their time is valuable, and I can imagine somebody getting frustrated. Anyway, we got done, and he sees the look on my face. He goes, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, you're not going to believe this, because I told him the stories of the previous ones.
Right.
I said the video didn't. I mean, the video worked, but the audio didn't work. And he goes, no problem, let's do it again. I mean, yeah. So it
Take
was
two,
like,
right?
yeah. Okay, yeah. So he, I choked you up, didn't I?
No, yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I have it right here.
Yeah, yeah. So, and since then, by the grace of God, everything's been going pretty smooth. We haven't had any glitches. There's been a couple things happen. So on one of the blooper episodes, um, gosh, see, now this is going to kill Pastor Scott Lee down at CrossFit Church.
Okay.
So we were in the middle of the podcast talking like we are right now, and all of a sudden the camera went,
Yeah.
So I cut that out of the regular podcast, but I put it in a bloopers. So if you have a chance to go watch the bloopers, I love blooper reels anyway.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So
I played it a couple of times at the fundraiser.
Yeah, the funny stuff, the crazy stuff, where we drop stuff, where the camera goes off or on when it's not supposed to, or
we're
whatever.
sitting here eating sandwiches.
Yeah, the sandwiches. Yeah, that was cool. I got that idea. Where'd I get that idea from? Oh, I know. I got that from the end of one of the Marvel movies, Avenger movies.
Yes.
And at the end of it, after they just saved the world, and New York City was just in disarray, and there's stuff all over. They're sitting in this restaurant that looks like it's just been exploded.
Right.
And they're just eating. And that's all they're doing. They just eat. And they take a bite, and then they look at each other, and then they just shake their head. And
I remember that. It was funny.
So we did that too. So so now you know how it started. This guy right here, he had a vision. He kicked it off. So that was in 20. Yeah, there's the vision.
Don't drop the bat.
Don't drop the bat.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. So in the beginning, this bat was broken. It's glued now, so it's not going.
You can't see it. It's a little bit lower.
Yeah. So the bat.
Yeah.
And that was in one. Don't drop the bat.
Yeah.
We had a couple things.
Yeah.
Now and then we had the what's up?
Yeah.
So
that's all there. I can't believe that. I was like, man, he's gonna keep that up.
Oh, it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then from the beginning, so from the men's conference, Al Conklin, WBTV, was it senior meteorologist? What do they call it? Chief meteorologist. He did our intro several years ago. He did something for one of our Christmas plays.
Okay.
And then I asked him to do an intro for the men's conference, beginning the very first year, and he's done one every year. And then we clipped it together for the podcast. So he's the intro. That's, if you're not from around here and you don't know who that is, that's Al Conklin from Channel 3 WBTV. And then he came and did a podcast. So again, not that he's and he would say this himself, he's not any greater or more wonderful than anybody else. But in everybody's time is valuable that comes in here. And we appreciate every guy who has come through. We've had guys come through here that are factory workers, state senators, landscapers, commissioners, just all kinds of different stuff.
Everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and with everyone involved, the whole point is the greater purpose.
Right.
I mean, and it doesn't matter what we always say, you put the pants on the same way as I do.
Yeah.
Same idea. But it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, is that if you have God in your life.
Yeah, what you're doing professionally, what you're doing politically, what you're doing in your family, in your church, and in your community should be the greater purpose of all of that. Is what God is doing in and through all that kind of stuff. And that's what these guys do. They come in here and tell us about that stuff. So let's talk about some of these videos that we've got. We're going to go ahead and do these. Let's do that. So the first video we want you to take a look at real quick is the one from Kent Harrington. If you'll watch this real quick.
It's Bill Ward. Known this man 6 years about. Helped him out every year at the Greater Purpose Conference. Been a blast every time. Can be certain at sometimes a little short, but he needs to be as a leader, Really compassionate guy. I've yet to find someone that can match him in that. And of course I haven't met Mother Teresa, but she had some competition there. He always tries to get men involved, whether it be in small stuff or larger things, from just doing a little food drive, going on the podcast that he's been hosting that I had the privilege of being on, and to being a mentor, an advocate, and most importantly, a friend. And I don't know how else to describe him, but a God-fearing, just devout man. And I'm not sure where my life would be without him, since he's influenced me so much. And he's a really great guy. That's my little bit of spiel, but not much else to say. Great guy.
So thank you, Kent. Appreciate that.
Great.
Cool.
He was
yeah,
a tear.
yeah. So about we
maybe two.
we previewed these before, which was good because some of these did choke me up a little bit. But Kent, really, you are an amazing kid. You've done some great things with the conference.
Oh, yeah.
He's our audio video guy.
He keeps me going at the conference.
He's a whiz. He does a fantastic job with that.
Thank you, Kent.
Yep, and a great heart for the Lord. We appreciate him.
That whole family.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then we have one next to. Oh, by the way, they weren't supposed to say anything about me specifically, but anyway,
okay.
You can't. Guys.
He's the host, right?
Guys don't follow their instructions. So anyway,
Bob would be on this podcast.
Yeah. So right, okay, yeah, I appreciate that. So the next one we have was one that Stephen was able to record at the fundraiser that we had, which we do want to talk about in just a minute. Well, let's talk about the fundraiser right now before we play the video.
Sure, that'd be great.
So we did a fundraiser. So I knew Stephen was putting out some money over the last couple of years. He would never tell me how much. Still hasn't told me how much. I knew I was. There's Google ads, there's subscriptions, there's things that you have to pay for to do a podcast. Not a huge amount of money, but in this grand scheme of things over a couple of years, it does add up. So we decided, Stephen said, let's do a fundraiser. And again, I said, you're an idiot, shut up. Because I'm thinking, why would anybody want to do that? So, and not only that, but even though our pastor considers this an extended ministry of the church,
yeah,
and I do too, but I kind of feel like we're, way over here removed.
Which, thank you very much.
Yeah, Pastor Adrian says, no, you're a part of the ministry. And literally, I said, okay, fine, I'll send him a message and find out. Literally within minutes, he sends a message back, let's do it.
Yeah.
No question about it. I'm like,
right.
Which is to me even more overwhelming and more humbling.
Didn't even have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, and the response through the whole fundraiser was that way. It's just, I'm looking around at these people willing to give their time, and I posted something up on Facebook about that, willing to give their time and their efforts and their energy and their money. And I'm looking around going, and I know you say, oh, you deserve, but I know biblically we understand this. We deserve absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah.
We deserve the least. But again, God does say, if you do my work, if you follow my plan, you're in my will, I'm going to bless you. And so,
how are we supposed to reach people?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And he uses us. We are the clay.
Yes. Yep. So
he's the potter. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Check mark.
Yeah.
But we the clay.
Yeah. He's the one molding and using us to reach. So the fundraiser was great. We had the hot dog sale, hot dog plates too. And then what?
They were good too.
They were good. Yeah. That's what I heard. That's so. Oh yeah. Man, I should have pulled this one up. I'll tell you this one in a minute. It was from JoJo. Lena sent it. JoJo said something after he left. But the hot dog fundraiser and the cake sale.
Oh my, that was fun.
Great. And we have no pictures or video of that because he was working, I was working. We didn't get anything from that. But videos and pictures of it. It was great.
Thank you for everybody.
Yes,
seriously.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. And the highest bidders, of course, Chris White and Chris Falls. We appreciate everybody.
Yes.
But those two guys were just, they can't stand to be outdone. So it was great.
I'm still trying to get a piece of my wife's carrot cake.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know, right?
But so Lena Rick sends me a message afterwards and said that JoJo said that was the best hot dog ever. When can we go back to that restaurant?
All right. So now we got now CGP restaurant.
New announcement, right? Big announcement.
Hey, I got an idea for you.
A restaurant.
I was kidding. Shut up,
you're an idiot. Right.
Oh my goodness.
There will not be a TGP hot dog stand or anything else for that matter, right? So
outside Cup Stadium.
Yeah.
You live,
right? We are talking about the possibility of a golf tournament, though.
Yeah, I think that'll be amazing.
So that'll be kind of cool. TGB golf tournament.
Yes.
So, and by the way, they're two separate entities. The men's conference is separate from the
Right.
from the podcast. So if you're sponsoring the men's conference, that's different than sponsoring and supporting the podcast, even though they're both TGP. So we're God's molding that too.
Oh yeah.
Because the conference started, no idea about the podcast, then came the podcast. Now we're 2 years in the podcast, 5 into the conference. So
never know.
I don't know what he's going to do next. I'm just along for the ride, right? That's what you said. We're along for the ride. So that was the next one, and he was also a guest, Pastor Gilly.
Yes,
I gotta watch his podcast. I gotta watch all of them, but his sports story. He's a big NASCAR fan.
He does.
His sports story was not about NASCAR. That's enough right there for you to know you should watch. Even if you fast forward, which you don't want to, because it was a great podcast from a very inspirational man, godly man. You can go to that part if you just wanted to and watch the sports story. The sports story comes after the parting gifts, which is the hand sanitizer and the baseball cards.
Right.
Which my wife said, "Why do you keep doing that?" But it was just funny. Oh, by the way, we're running out of hand sanitizer, so I don't know what we're going to do for the hand sanitizer. We're
looking for donations.
We got donations. So that's if you haven't watched that part of the podcast, I've got 3 left. I think. Yeah, I got 3. I got 3 of these left. So that's it. There's 3 of these left, and then we're done with the hand sanitizer. So we also
COVID's over.
So wait, so yeah, so we'll do something else. Yeah, but let's do Pastor Gilly's
real quick
clip, and then we'll talk about some other stuff too. Watch this clip from Pastor Bobby Gilly.
Well, what did you experience on the podcast? What do you say?
I enjoyed the broadcast. I enjoyed sharing the testimony, and I enjoyed the vision of the burden that Bill has, and Stephen has, and that this program has, and the people that are enjoying the testimonies of seeing how Jesus does change lives and makes life more wonderful. God bless you.
And so there's a little noise in the background. Hopefully we got the words up there for you so you can see what he was saying. A great man, a great godly man. And again, he comes up here. He was still pastoring at the time.
Yeah.
He took the time to come up here and share his insights and his inspirations. So
he's been mentioned by several.
He has. So yeah, we were going to try to go do a word search. I know that's a huge undertaking. I keep asking him to do stuff the hard stuff. I wanted to go back through and see how many times Billy Graham was mentioned.
Right.
How many times somebody like Pastor Willy or Adrian or Shannon Williams or because the one of the probably most interesting things to me is as I'm sitting, because I send them the format,
right?
But I don't know what they're going to say until they say it.
Yeah.
So when we're sitting here, I'm hearing it for the first time most of the time, and I'm hearing them mention names of guys that have been through here on the podcast, or guys that I've known for however many years,
and they have nothing to do with that church or the other. I mean, it's amazing.
Yes, there have been. Paul Brentley's been named. Jason Williams has been named. Multiple men have been named that have either been on the podcast or have somehow crossed paths with the Greater Purpose Conference.
Which I think is the amazing part.
It is amazing. Yeah.
It's the amazing part.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're all, I hate that saying because it was a COVID saying. We're all in this together, okay? But we are.
Right.
And we need to act that way. We need to be, sticking together. So that was Pastor Gilly's clip. Oh, real quick. Let's do this one real quick. So Jared, William, and Tegan are at VCA. Yeah. 4th grade, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be more happy if I said 4th grade and they're in 3rd than if they're in 3rd grade, 4th grade,
then in 5th grade.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I got you.
They're at least in 4th grade. I mean, they're at least 3rd grade, but I think they're 4th grade.
All right.
And so they're in my STEM classes, right? And I've known them for years. They've been in STEM classes. Some of them in preschool, whatever. They were in my when I did aftercare at VCA. I've substituted a little bit, so I've over the years they've been in my classes. So, but I don't know how or why, but I went in to tell them when my next day was going to be. I poked my head in the door, and one of them said something about the Greater Purpose podcast. And I'm going, and I looked at Miss Bentley. I think they're, well, no, it would have been Miss Calendar.
Miss Calendar.
And I looked at her, and I looked at them, and I'm like, what do you know about the podcast? And like all 3 of them piped up and said, we watch your podcast. I said, you watch the Greater Purpose podcast? And they're like, yeah, we love it. It's great.
Yeah.
And I'm going, so I thought, well, we need to have them just say a little congratulatory.
I love their clip.
It's great.
I love their clip.
It is. It's pretty cool.
I love their clip.
So let's go ahead and watch it here.
Congratulations on the 100th episode of the Greater Purpose Podcast.
Exciting! Is that great? That enthusiasm.
That's one.
Those guys are great, and they are good. They are good young men.
Yeah.
So listen, if you're supporting the podcast, if you're subscribing, if you're sharing, if you're liking, what you're doing is touching their lives.
Yeah.
Those are lives of young men who are seeing what's happening in the lives of older men. Yeah, I know exactly. Now Anthony's younger than them. So
yes, he is.
In most cases, it's older men, but it's just in general.
Well, I mean, we're becoming the men for the people that are coming next. Yeah. So, I mean, we become the people who we're trying to, that we're talking about that influenced us.
Well, and that's the thing, too. That's what we try to say on here. We say godly, like the greater purpose of a godly man. That doesn't mean we think we've arrived. That doesn't mean we think we're there.
Yeah.
We know
6 months after death is what I've been told.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So, right, exactly. Because nobody that comes in here saying, oh, I'm a God. That's not what they're doing. No. That isn't what they're doing. What they're saying is that I am attempting to walk the path that God wants me to walk. I am following Jesus Christ. I am living for the Lord. I have inspirations in my life who have brought me through there. And that's what they're sharing, and that's why they're sharing it. So we're doing that. Look at the little guys that you are able to build into their lives. So, all right, we have another one, a little bit different. Let's see. I was going to say something else about, and then I went back, but that's okay. Oh yeah, the brand new card. Let's talk about that in a minute because she's going to talk about that right here. So this is from Cindy Villatoro. I said it right, and that's Gil is her brother, who is my daughter's boyfriend.
Did I get all that? Did you get all that? Let me see.
So Anna, my good and godly daughter, who is a servant of the Lord. She's missionary. She goes to Guatemala. She sings on the praise and worship team, all that cool stuff. She has why would I cry about that? But her boyfriend from Calhoun, Georgia, is an amazing young man. He's been on the podcast. You should go back and watch his.
Helped out at the fundraiser.
Helped out at the fundraiser. He comes about every other weekend and spends the weekend here, and not in our house, not sleeping in the same. He stays in a motel or whatever. But just a great, awesome, godly young man. We went down to Calhoun, Georgia, met the people there that all know him, and they all confirm. You can tell, you can see that he is exactly. He's walking that walk we were just talking about. But in talking to his family, I think explaining something maybe about the podcast, while we were all sitting there, and Cindy goes, well, I know. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, I watched the podcast. And I'm like, and in my mind, when somebody says they watched the podcast, I'm thinking you watched 1 or 2 episodes.
Right. I've seen the podcast.
I've seen my understanding is she watches the podcast.
I clicked the button that says subscribe.
Right, exactly. So I watched a little bit of the guy that I knew.
Which you can do also.
Yeah, but she did. And she's been sharing, of course, her brother's podcast and getting it out there and doing all that stuff. So we asked her if she would say a little something about the podcast, and she is officially a watcher. So see, there are young ladies and older ladies also that watch, but there are women that watch the podcast too, not just men. So let's hear from Cindy Villatoro.
It's the 100th episode of The Greater Purpose. The Greater Purpose is so awesome and has been such a blessing to my life. Thank you, Bill, for all that you do. May God bless you in this journey and in your ministry. And go Cubs!
All right. Thank you, Cindy, for that great and the Go Cubs message.
Go Cubs!
Go Cubs, she said.
Go Cubs.
She knows it's in the Cubs. Oh,
and that's she's not even been in here.
No, she's just seen the background. But so that's what I was going to say. This is not necessarily Cubs related, but the card that I had was an official Chicago Cubs. So I give these out to every guest. That's one of their parting gifts. And it has information on the back of it, and it's tops. Yep. So we're running out. I've got just 3 left, but instead of giving those out, I don't know what we'll do with those. I needed to go ahead and start something new for the 100th episode. So we've ordered some. They're not from Tops. I went to Tops.
Yes.
And Tops is not making them anymore. They have discontinued that, but found something kind of cool. So now here it is, the new
Greater Purpose card.
New Greater Purpose card. Information on the back, all that good stuff. So from now on, beginning on episode 101.
Well, I will get that one right there.
Okay. Yes. Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. That's right. I already
100th
signed that.
episode.
Yeah, and I'll sign it.
Yes.
And like I tell everybody that when I sign it, like you said, when you walk out of here, it'll be worth exactly what it's worth when you walk out of here.
Yes.
How you like that?
Values.
Right.
Love value.
Yeah, I don't know what the value is, but
Love
there
value.
it goes. You get
Yes.
you get number 100.
You remember.
Number
Yeah.
100. Cool.
Remember.
All right. So thank you, Cindy, for that clip. That's great. Now we have another clip. So again, we told these people not to say stuff about the host, and of course they did not follow instructions. So
this one's great.
This is and again, all the guests, all the people who support, we're not comparing anybody to anybody. But John Jones, Big John, did a really good. He was here on the podcast. He's been involved in the men's conference. They have a men's conference, happens to be the same weekend as ours, so he wasn't able to be here last year or won't be here this year. But he is very supportive of the podcast. He's very supportive of the ministries, and he'll tell you in his clip exactly what I mean by that. But let's go ahead and listen to John Jones in his clip. Watch that.
Hey, it's Big John, and I'm so happy to help Brother Bill with his 100th episode. I was on the Greater Purpose podcast back at episode 69, I believe it was. We discussed what it's like to be a man on the podcast. We discussed what was going on and my own ministries and as well as Brother Bill's ministry. It was awesome to be invited into the club room. Most assuredly, Brother Bill is the largest, or I shouldn't say the largest club fan, but the biggest Cub fan. I don't know how you word that I've ever met in my entire life. And I love to see what he's doing, uniting people, reaching out across denominational lines, grabbing people, and having them just share who they are. The Greater Purpose podcast to me seems to be more about a Christian trying to highlight what God's doing in others' lives. And it reminds me of scriptures that we read in the Bible that says to prefer your brother over yourself, to decrease so that Christ might increase in us. And as the church, that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be the hands and feet of Christ on this earth. We're supposed to be telling the world who Jesus is, showing the world who Jesus is. And I think that's what's going on in the Greater Purpose podcast. I think that if you just get to know Bill Ward, you'll know that the most important person in his life is Jesus Christ, and everything that he's doing, he's doing everything he can to show that, to honor Christ and what he does, and I'm thankful to know him. When I spoke to him, he expressly said to make sure that we didn't talk about him or the podcast, that we discussed what God was doing through our ministries, and part of what makes my church different than other churches is that we follow a formula similar to what he's following, in that we promote others. Mostly we promote Christ, and then we support other ministries. That we don't be a place to see others talked down to make us look better, but we try to be the kind of people that that edify the church where we should be, and we also try to be a people that are encouraging where we should be. Now, we call sin what it is, and we call it out where it needs to be called out, but where there needs to be grace, we give grace, and I think that that's in line with God's word. So very happy for you, Bill. I'm so very happy for what God's doing in your life. Keep up the good work, brother. And Big John, go watch the Greater Purpose podcast.
That was pretty amazing right there. And the cool thing at the end with the music.
Oh, that was fantastic. I loved it. I love the sound. It was just.
I mean, I like ours better. No.
I know, but it's just the way he was already talking and everything. I mean, it was a chill moment. It was very nice.
Yeah,
thanks, man.
He's a good man, and we appreciate him. Appreciate his ministry as well. Yes. He's done some really great things. So we do have one more.
Just maybe next year move the day. One more week. I mean, we can support each other.
Yeah. Which, by the way, the reason that we have the Greater Purpose Men's Conference on the weekend that we have it is because for the next 10 years,
yes,
the weekend before and the weekend after, or the weekend, because Easter is so weird.
Yes, it
Sometimes
is
it's
weird.
in March, sometimes it's April.
Yeah, right.
It falls either before the weekend before or the weekend after.
Perfect.
At some time
Fantastic.
during that 10 years. But on that weekend, for 10 years at least,
yes,
Easter does not fall on that weekend.
Oh, that's perfect.
So that was kind of
idea.
the reason that we picked that weekend. So
smart.
Which I think is the weekend after Easter this year. So, but anyway, so we hope you'll do that. We are going to play one more clip, but it's going to be the closeout to this show because it is. I'll explain to you in a minute who she is. But is there anything else that you wanted to share, podcast wise, history wise, going forward wise, anything like that before we close out with the next video?
Just it's 100 episodes.
That's crazy.
I mean, I like to take that in and just the sheer number of people that have supported, the people that have liked. I mean, just like and subscribe, right? It's the same thing for any YouTube channel. When you do watch it, just hit those buttons. They do help. And it helps other people. I mean, we're looking forward, or I always am looking forward. You do a lot of the present stuff, right? My focus is where are we going and how are we getting there, and what's the how always just figures itself out.
Yeah, and that's what God's been doing. He's
the how. I mean, without Him, there's no other way. But I dream. I dream for you.
Well, let me touch on that because I'm sure you probably remember if you went back through your messages, you would see the first time we hit 100 views.
Oh, never.
And I, in my mind, was thinking, why in the world would 100 people watch this thing? We are at 72,000 views.
I know.
That's
amazing,
crazy.
Dude. It's amazing. How many followers?
We have 3,070. 3,700 something. Yeah. Almost 3,800 right now. Again, crazy because
and growing.
Yeah, because at the first time we hit 100 on both of those, I know. I mean, I was probably dancing around.
You were,
and I don't dance.
No,
but I know I sent you a message. Like, whoa!
I've gotten them over the course of these past couple of years. It just gets.
Yeah, I do. I send every time
I get a snapshot, and I just smile, and then I send a message.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it's not, and you tell people because it's not about the numbers.
No,
like if you're having a Bible study and only 5 people show up, those are the 5 people that needed
100%. Yeah.
So we understand that. So if one person watches it, then we're doing it for that one person.
Thank you.
We get that.
Yeah.
But it's just so exciting to see what God keeps doing, and every time we hit another threshold, it's like it completely blows me away.
Well,
so,
I'm looking for the 10.
Yeah,
I'm looking for 10,000 followers. Yep.
I'm telling you, he's a workhorse.
Subscribers. Yep. We're looking for that one. 100,000 views.
100,000 views.
Yep. And then,
that's crazy.
And then viewership. That's what we're working on. On viewership.
Yeah. So listen,
how long you watch.
So
Also
if
is
you're watching
included,
the podcast, hang around a little bit, or save it and watch the end of it.
And even
later.
the shorts. So I mean, he produces some other shorts that are not part, but it's all part, right?
Yeah,
so click on those, watch those little clips. I mean, they're
some of them are just
hilarious.
Yeah, some of them are just crazy,
amazing stuff you put out.
Some are political.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I had to do some of those, which is crazy because one of them.
It's not like we don't have any political people on this show ever, right? Yeah.
And during the past election, there were 2 or maybe 3 that I posted up that were like 1.1 thousand views. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So that's okay. However, you're supporting this, but the longer you watch the podcast, then the better it is for the analytics and that.
Well, we're growing, and I'm excited.
Yeah,
every episode is another check mark.
Yeah, and the neat thing too is while we've been planning for this, I get it. It's exciting for us because we're saying the 100th episode. But when you say that, I mean, I guess it's like you just got a brand new tree that you planted in the yard. Nobody cares. Who cares about your brand new tree, right? Or you just got a new load of lava rock.
Yeah.
Now you're so excited.
Oh, that's what you got. Yeah. I saw it.
That's what made me think of it. You're excited. But you don't. Your neighbors don't care. I mean, they might be glad that you're long.
Maybe we get one person that watches this.
Right. But when we've been saying this to people, when we said 100th episode, it's like this little thing goes off in your head.
It is.
And I wasn't expecting that. I thought, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't what they're like. What?
Yeah, it's like
What?
syndication, you know,
When I
for
said
television.
that, when I said
100th
that,
episode.
when I said that during the cake auction,
Yeah.
and I said 100. I mean, because they're in the fellowship hall and talking, and there's
Right.
noise and stuff, and they're listening halfway listening to what I'm saying, which that's kind of normal for me
Yeah,
anyway.
right.
This is the only time they listen to me is here. But and so, but when I said that, it's like.
Right.
It was like this hush when I
Calm,
said
right.
100th episode is coming up in next week, and they're like, "What?" So anyway, that's pretty cool. The fact that they were responding kind of like we've been pretty excited about it. So,
and that's what it is. I mean, when you do something steady, 100 comes. I mean, it will come.
I never will. Oh, see, I didn't tell them that. So back when we had all those problems, the issues, the technical difficulties, all that kind of stuff, he was I think you were in California or Texas or something.
Yeah, California.
And so, because he had to go on this tour, we knew he was going. We were prepared.
Yep.
I thought. And so I sent him this message out the seventh or eighth episode.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have saved that, and I would have posted it. Right? Do you? You need to send it. I'll post it up here. And I said, I'm done. I quit.
I know you did.
Yeah, I mean, I was done. Literally, in my mind, I said, I'm not doing this. It was frustrating. It was just Satan. Satan was just trying to beat me. I get it. But I was done. I did not want to do this anymore. It was too much. It was too chaotic. It was too crazy. It was not fun at that point. It was not fun. It's fun now. I have a blast with it. But he used that to strengthen me and get us over the hump and do that kind of stuff. So, and then I talked to a friend of mine who does podcasts and does consulting for podcasts, and I saw him a couple months later and told him, he said, "Oh, that's cool. That's okay." And he's asking me stuff about the podcast and stuff, and I told him about the problems.
I remember.
And he said, "Well, that's about." He said, "What podcast was that?" I said, "Like 7 or 8." He said, "That's when usually people give up.
Yeah,
they quit. They quit on number 7 or 8." Well, at that point, we were at number 13 or 14.
Yeah, I remember. I remember this whole thing. Yeah. It was great.
Yeah. So that was hopeful to me.
Yeah, it was
from him. And this is the kind of guy he is too. He's kind of like you. He's very encouraging. And that was kind of his encouragement back to me to say, "Hey, you made it over that hump."
Well, and that's where God allows other people.
Yeah.
You know, because you may be growing in one area, but you need to, again, they got to do their part.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy thing too. I had not seen him in probably 10 years. We've connected on Facebook and stuff like that, but just general chatting stuff, nothing important. And I went. It was in Statesville. I went for a funeral of all things. And it was at his church. He's the video guy, the audio video guy back there. And so there he was, and we just started chatting about it. So, I mean, 10 years later.
Yeah. I needed you right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was God right
there.
So, it is so
love
cool.
it, dude.
Yeah. It is so
love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, let's go ahead. And so I'm not going to pretend because I try not to act like I know something that I don't know on the podcast. So, Gail Parker is, I'm going to say, our biggest fan, right? And she watches every episode. She knows who's been on here. She knows who hasn't been on here, and she tells them they need to be on here. She has,
thank you, Gail.
Yeah. She has procured guests for us simply by going up to them and saying, "You need to be on the podcast." She's an amazing supporter. She helped put together the cake auction, getting the people to donate the desserts and stuff for that. And she's been, again, just like you, just like my executive producer, Donna Ward, who has been absolutely amazing through this whole thing. I'll say something about her in a minute because that's when I'll start crying. But Gail has been a really big supporter too. I know you love this part. I don't love this part. I know. Yeah, well, it's actually Donna that did that part, but Gail too. What a great supporter. So So we're going to record something after we've actually recorded the podcast from Gail. We were supposed to
Square box.
Yeah, we were supposed to put not yet. We were supposed to put it in. We were supposed to record it a couple weeks ago. We ran into some glitches. Then we were going to do it Sunday night. It was so crazy with the fundraiser. There was just no time. So she's going to do it actually after the podcast. So we don't really know what she's going to say. So we're not going to pretend that we do. We're going to thank her for doing it, and we appreciate her. But let's go ahead and play that clip right now with Gail Parker.
Brother Bill Ward has asked me to discuss some things about the podcast. Yes, I'm a female, but we do watch the guys. I'd like to tell you about some episodes that really struck me to my soul. The first one that I actually started watching was episode 49, and that was with Zachary Sang. It was one of the first podcasts that I'd watched. His testimony and that beautiful smile. He spoke on perfection. Episode number 26, Pastor Adrian Franklin, our pastor at South. This was a service of pastors, or a series of pastors. They mentioned several men of God being the light of the world. At the age of 9 was called to preach. You know, that's awful young to be called to preach, but I'm sure he ran from that for a while. The intro with Al Conklin. I love that guy. He's my weather guy. Episode number 3, Chris White. A godly man, and I've seen God move and raise him to a standard that has really helped our church. He's our Christian education director. He has come alongside our pastor, and he has helped him tremendously. Episode number 25, Pastor Bobby Gilly. He was the third pastor that was being appreciated through that series. He's no stranger to the Church of God. My first pastor after being away from God for 18 years. And he brought me to where I am today with my new pastor. Episode number 31 was Ronnie Dover. He mentioned Eric Quinn and Chris White being his mentors and godly men, and being accountable. And I'd like to honorably mention these young guys: James Shook, Kent Harrington, Benjamin Brown, my bonus nephew, Scott Miller. There are so many other testimonies in our church. If we could just get these men to just trust God and let them share their testimony with you, things would be so much easier. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you, Gail. We appreciate you. Since she is a great person at church, a great spiritual person, and a great encouragement for this podcast. So again, we don't like to we don't want to, we don't want to put somebody above somebody else, but when somebody goes over and above,
I mean, it is what it is. We're thankful.
Now the next part. So I've already thanked you.
Yes.
But I can't say thank you enough for having the vision that I did not have. I had no vision on this at all. Folks, I'm telling you, this podcast would have never have happened if it wasn't for Stephen. Never. Literally, never. And I'm not saying this is the great and wonderful podcast. Okay, I think it's good. I think these guys are great. But the idea came from God through you to me, and it never would have gotten there without you.
So I got 2 words for you.
Okay, well, you're welcome. Amen. That's good. Thank you for thank you for listening to what God said, following His guidance, and telling me, listen, be the encourager. Be the person that motivates. Be the person that inspires. Because if you're not doing that, you are losing out on multiple blessings.
Yep.
Things that God could be doing in your life and in your ministry by building into others. So, okay, and let me just throw this out there, the fundraiser. So the fundraiser, I was told by Jessica Lammons, again, another big supporter, amazing supporter. Yes, absolutely. The fundraising, handled the money thing, had the hot dogs, did everything. She had said, because I've never done a hot dog fundraiser before, she said plan for 100, but then buy 150 so you have extra. Mm-hmm. And so those were the numbers in my brain when we started with Gil. Gil and I went to get the stuff. Thank you, Gil. I stole him away from Anna all morning. He went to men's breakfast with me, and then we went shopping. So those are the numbers that should have been in my head, but for some reason at the time I didn't know why. 200 was in my head, right. And I like to think big, so I guess I just pawned it off on thinking big.
Yeah,
200, but you're not going to sell 200 hot dogs on a Sunday evening fundraiser. Now maybe a Saturday.
They started at 4:30 and they didn't quit coming.
They didn't, right? Absolutely. So we don't have a tally.
No,
we don't know, but we had quite a bit left over.
Yeah,
but everything was paid for in advance. The donations.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, people said, "Here's a check."
Yeah,
people said, "Here's whatever," so it paid for all of the supplies. So when we started, that was already paid for. So everything beyond that was profit.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got done, we're all back there talking about it. And and it's like Jessica said, what about Ben? And I'm like, Ben who? And I knew what she's talking about, but it was like, Ben, I'm trying to connect. And Ben Brown does a homeless ministry, and he preaches and teaches and has a great ministry with people that don't otherwise normally have opportunities to be involved in the church. And he does homeless outreach, and he feeds the people and does all this kind of stuff. And she said, what about Ben Brown? And so we're thinking, okay, let's give him the hot dogs. And then I said, no, let's give him the chips too. And I'm like, nah, give him the oatmeal pies too. Yeah. Let's give them the drinks too. And they're like, and some of the people back there that volunteered with us were saying, you want to give them that too? And I'm like, yeah, just give it all. There's no, there was no reason for us to keep it. There might have been some other things we could have used it for, but we're like, go ahead and just, let's give it away. So you guys paid to help, I don't know how many people, 50, 60, 70, maybe. I don't know, maybe Ben Brown can chime in here somewhere if he's watching this, if he's watching this podcast today. He can chime in and tell us how many people he was able to feed, but there's a picture of it. If I can remember, I'll screenshot that picture and put it up here of the food that he was able to take to the homeless people. So you guys did that. So a blessing because you listened to what God told you 2 years ago.
Yeah. That touches. It's good, man. It's good.
And you passed it to me, and I denied it for a year. But then did what God told us to do.
Well, isn't that funny? You know how we listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes we hold on and we're not sure, and we second guess ourselves so much that we're like, who? See, this is where that worthy part comes in. Where that we're nothing without God, right? Okay, yeah, that's true. But if we don't be the mold, and that's what I think, we have to put our hands on something and work and create something that is going to benefit other people.
Right.
Pastors do it. I mean, they come, they preach, they give what they have on Sunday morning, and then who gives back to them?
Yeah.
I mean, we as an audience, but we also need as a person to, hey, Pastor, appreciate you, man. That's awesome. Thanks for this. I mean, giving back. So the same thing, we give back to other people that we don't even know.
Encourage, motivate, inspire. Right. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're here. That's what we're encouraging you to do. Be that person that encourages and inspires and motivates people, because if you're following God, if you're listening to God and you're seeing something somebody else doesn't see, and you give them, you're the catalyst for that, then God's going to feed that back to you, because he promises you blessings. We've talked about that 100 times on here. The scripture specifically, I could go find it, but he specifically says he will bless us for doing his work. So, and then of course, Romans 8:28 is the scripture that we've adopted. God does everything to fulfill his purpose.
He does
his greater purpose. That's his purpose. So he brings all of it together from the beginning, walking in the door. I mean, really from the beginning before the men's conference, COVID, delay of the conference, walking in the door here, talking about a podcast, making fun of it, thinking it's a joke, putting it off for a year, doing it.
Producer, are you here?
Yeah, making fun of the producer that's not here. Going forward with a whole bunch of guests, 100 podcasts later. A fundraiser that blesses the homeless.
That's right.
All of it's tied together, right?
Yeah.
Tied together. So the last thing I want to touch on, this will really mess me up, but I did on the podcast that I did a week before last, I did talk about my awesome wife, my wonderful wife. You might have to fill in some here, Stephen, because there might be some moments of silence.
The thing is, that's the silence. When the movie comes on and says silence is golden.
Yeah, it's golden. Yeah. Okay,
that's what is there's the gold.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll buy that. Go ahead. So my wife, who has watched almost every episode, she's almost caught up. I think she's maybe one or two episodes. And you ask, how do I know? That's because when she pulls in the driveway.
Hi, Donna.
When she pulls into the driveway, I can hear her. I can hear it. And I'm hearing, first time she did that, she pulled in. I'm like, who is she listening to? Who is that? I didn't recognize my own voice. I'm like, oh, you're listening to me? Yeah. You're listening to us? You're listening to, and she's not listening to me. She hears me all the time. She's listening to these great guests that come through. Oh, by the way, Spotify, Amazon.
Yes.
And Apple, right? You can listen too.
Listen.
But she listens on the podcast she has it on and the Bluetooth connected.
Yes.
So she's listening through YouTube. Somebody
Yep.
said to me, "Well, are you on Spotify? I don't want to."
Yeah.
You can still pull up your YouTube. Just
YouTube Music pulls it up. Too.
Yeah. So you can still play it from the podcast. So don't let that be the reason you don't listen. But but she critiques, she analyzes, and if you don't listen to your wife, if you don't listen to the better woman, the great godly woman in your life for guidance and expertise, then you're a moron. So and I do not want to be a moron.
No.
So I've been that before.
Yeah.
And I'll probably be that again sometimes. But one of the areas where I have tried, and because God has blessed me with the great woman that He has.
Fantastic, man.
I have been trying and have hopefully done pretty well at listening, because my wife is smart. And she knows what works and she knows what doesn't work. Now, she doesn't like the hand sanitizer thing.
Well,
so,
we only got 3 left, so there you go. Good job, Donna.
103 episodes, you'll be done with the hand sanitizer. So, and there are some other insights that she's given me, and I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. I need to change that. Maybe I need to do something different. So,
wasn't it the Fast Five?
The Fast Five.
Yeah.
She said, so like after the 5th
favorites,
one, or 6th one, she's like, stop saying Fast Five. And I'm like, huh? I mean, I'm like, we were trying to keep the podcast.
Gimmicky, a little.
We were, well, no, it wasn't the gimmicky part. It was because we were trying to keep it under a certain
right. That's correct.
So I was trying to push these guys through this, and she said she could tell that they had more to say.
Right.
So from my podcast friend in Statesville, who advised me, also said, don't limit the podcast. Don't limit the time.
Right.
Because if somebody's going to watch, if they watch past 10 minutes, they're going to watch the whole thing anyway.
Yep.
So if they don't, they're not going to. So you can stop it at 20 and they didn't watch the last 10 minutes anyway.
Yep.
So that was probably one of the best pieces of advice that she gave me, was don't rush them through it. And what has happened through that is some stories that have come through here, through the guests, that I know specifically because people have told me that spoke to them and that touched them, and
that's great.
And that inspired them.
Yeah, you don't want to hinder that.
Yeah,
of course.
So thank you, baby, for doing that. You are an amazing executive producer. That's kind of a joke that we say executive, but you have to have creative insight. You have to have the ability to analyze, and women are really good at that anyway. My wife's amazing at that. So I personally thank you, baby, for being that for me here on the Greater Purpose podcast, for us as an extension from Stephen being our producer and the one who kind of thought of the idea and listened to God. Thank you for being that. So I think that covers everything. And again, thank you for being here for the 100th episode, Stephen.
Yes.
Thank you for being here for the 100th episode of the Greater Purpose podcast.
And thank you, Bill.
Okay. And thank you, Bill.
No, thank you, Bill. Because if you don't show up to do the podcast, who is there to interview? Who's there to interview? There's no one here. There's no one here if you're not here.
Yeah.
And you're in here. Believe me, he's there. He's got the heart for this.
Well,
and he loves you guys. Each and every one of you that he doesn't even know that it's touching. That's what it's about.
Well, and that is the amazing thing too, knowing that it is touching people that I had no clue.
Yeah.
You walk into a church at Calhoun, Georgia, and somebody has been watching your podcast. I go to a picnic at Harper Park, and 3 people say, "Hey, what's your podcast?" Our podcast. I say our, and I mean that. It's our podcast. It's yours. It's mine. It's Donna's. It's your podcast.
I always put it this way. It's easy to have an idea.
Yeah.
That's not the hard part.
Yeah. No, I know that was the hard part.
I understand, but believing that you can do it, maybe that's what it takes that to get there.
Yeah. But good thing, because I wouldn't have believed that.
I enjoy that part. That's my favorite thing to do, is to get people, and I can't do my job if you're not there.
Right.
I can't. There is no me. There is no me without you being there. There is no podcast without you in this seat. That's what I'm trying to say. So thank you, Bill. Well, that's all I want to say.
I want to say thank you to
There's no 100 episode without the 100 man.
The 100 man. Right. Well, and I have said this about the men's conference, and we do a no agenda men's breakfast every month, and this podcast. I'm only 62. I got a few more years left in me, but somewhere down the road, we'll have to pass the torch. So that's something that's not being what is it? I mean, it's not being like, I'm not saying
on the 100,000th episode.
100,000. So yeah, wow. No, I don't. 100,000. That's 100,000.
Yeah,
I'll be 162.
Well, you said you had to pass it, so it'll be after that.
Yeah, but somewhere down, listen, seriously, somewhere down the road, maybe this is 40, 50 years from now, somebody sees this episode.
Yeah, you never know.
There's a new host. There's somebody doing the podcast or something.
There's an AI picture frame or something of people.
Weird, right?
Just all kinds of stuff. You never know.
I hope it does carry on.
Listen, yeah.
And if it doesn't, for whatever reason, I hope that you would be inspired and encouraged and motivated to do whatever it is God wants you to do for the glory of His kingdom. Go out there and do it. Be inspired. Don't question. Well, you can question a doubt. I did that. I questioned a doubt, and then God selected it. But just continue to follow that path. So anyway, I think that's all. Like, subscribe, share, listen to us on the other platforms. And then be back again for the 101 episode next week on the Greater Purpose Podcast. Thank you for being here. God bless.
Thank you.
Woo!
All in the books.
That's crazy. Episode 100. Man, that's crazy.